And we'll kick things off with Sam. So I'll invite Sam up. So Sam, he's actually an environmental educator, but he's also one half of Folks of All Trade. Him and his wife Dani, they engage the community as well as all types of people, both in person and online, I think, around ways to incorporate sustainable living into your own lifestyle. And of course, the best way to showcase how to live sustainability is also to build it as well. So, Sam, tell us all about your straw bale cottage. Cheers.
Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it. Namarni, thanks for having me, everyone. So yes, as Ken said, Dani and I live here in this straw bale cottage and are folk of all trades. And yeah, I'm going to say we a lot because Dani and I did everything together. We were owner builders. So yeah, she can't be here today, but yeah, a massive part of the build and my life. So the building location is 45 minutes south of Adelaide in the Aldinga Arts Eco Village. So that was an old horse paddock prior to being decided it was going to be this beautiful eco village. The red circle indicates what is private land. So that's classic sort of Torrens title. And then all around it is commonly owned land. So we don't own it, but we help manage it. It's a little bit unusual. This is the funny shaped block that we purchased back in 2015. And you can see we've pushed the house as far west as we possibly can, and that's to maximize a garden. So a vegetable garden, east and north facing is absolutely ideal. Sometimes we joke that we only built so that we could garden, and there's quite a lot of truth in that actually. So there's the main house, and then south is the shipping container shed. So just a standard 6 metre long shipping container. And then on the west of the house, we've got rainwater tanks, which help provide a bit of protection. So that's a shot of the house under construction, classic post and beam timber construction before the straw bales came in. And that's a bit of a zoom in. So the cross-hatched walls there are the straw bale walls, and it's a kind of offset square. So the reason we decided not to put straw bales in places like the bathroom, the entry, which we call the mudroom, and north of our bedroom, the main bed there, was just to give us a little bit more space. Straw bale walls are very, very thick, 450 mil thick plus render. So we just felt like those spaces could deal with that little bit more space and didn't need quite so much insulation. So we pegged it out on site. That was really, really useful to do. I'd strongly recommend anytime you're building something, peg it out. We actually decided based on the furniture we knew we had, the bedroom would need to be half a metre bigger. And so that was really, really useful. I'm glad we did that. The materials we used, we went with a concrete slab. It's very highly reactive clay soil down there, and the termites are pretty voracious. So as much as I wanted to have an earth floor like Martin Freeney's done in the Earthship, it just wasn't going to be feasible for this build, but a future build maybe. So you can see there we've got the cutouts. Those are kind of undercover spaces that aren't internal to the building. And then we've actually thrown around heaps of oxide. So there's black oxide mixed into the top of the concrete pour, and then we've thrown oxide just that you can get from any hardware store on top of that, browns and reds, just to kind of give it a bit more texture and a bit more interest, not so stark and just sort of pure grey concrete. That's the straw bales arriving. So there's 250 straw bales in the 100 square metre house. They were $8 each, so that's $2,000, which I think is pretty good value. They're not just standard straw bales that you would get from a fodder store, you know, for sleeping, animal sleeping or anything like that. They're really, really tight. I believe it's barley straw. So I kind of joke that this is the house that beer built. I'm a big fan of beer and brewing. So yeah, nice that barley's been locked up, storing that carbon in the walls. And the reason we did it is it's just incredible insulation. So R10 plus, whereas a standard wall might be R2.8. Yeah, so just huge amount of insulation. So that's great for thermal, but it's also really, really good for sound. So we hardly hear anything unless we open windows and then we get, beautiful bird song and stuff. But if you're in a noisy area, straw bale is a great solution for that as well. So that picture shows the frame finished, ready to go. Roof is on. That makes it really easy to do the baling. You're under cover. They're not going to get wet. You're out of the sun. We baled around Easter, so it was still pretty warm. On the outside of the building, we went with a sand, lime, cement render. There's only about 5% cement in the mix. That's just to make it waterproof and also give it that long-lasting durability. I pushed back a little bit. I was like, do we really need the cement? And they're like, it's a good idea. So I was like, all right, you're the experts. So that's Scott from House of Bales applying the render. Immediately after that wall, the pump broke, and the rest of the house, 3 coats inside and out, we had to do by hand. So that was pretty full on. You need to be strong to do rendering. I just laboured, so I was shoveling render, but Scott and Lance basically put it on the wall. So I'm very impressed, and we're really happy with the finish. It's lightened a bit since that, so you can change the colour based on the kind of sand you're putting in. I think this was Bricky's sand. Internally, we just went sand and clay, so you can actually scratch the walls, but it means you can also fix them as well if you damage them in some way. Just sand and clay. We ended up using play pit sand, which is a very white coloured sand, and then a local clay that happened to be quite light as well. So that's just the natural colour. We haven't tinted it or anything like that, and it's got this beautiful suede kind of effect. There's lots of imperfections in it, and that's what I love about it. So the gyprock we decided to use a clay paint on. Unfortunately, most paints that you buy are liquid plastic, even if they're low VOC. It's not ideal in my opinion. So we went with this Volvox clay paint. There were 6 colours to choose from, which is actually really nice that you don't get overwhelmed with all these choices. So we went with the whitest one, Mont Blanc. And I reckon it was more expensive for sure, but because you only needed 2 coats, I think we actually saved quite a bit on labour and using less paint as well. So strongly recommend that if you're doing a reno, go for the clay paint. Some internal walls, we also did some cobbing. So cob is a much thicker render mix, I suppose, with sand, clay, and then a bit of straw mixed in just to help bind it together. And we just packed that into the classic stud frame walls. What we needed to do though is put something on the other side so it wouldn't just fall through. So that's ply, that's the inside of the pantry. So the reason we did it was to create a bit more thermal mass to slow that temperature spread down. We want to keep the pantry as cool as possible. So yeah, cob, really fun to mix. It's basically a stomping method. So you kind of have to put a dance party on and get it made. But we deliberately didn't put it in some panels. We knew there was going to be electricity and things going through. That would have been very difficult after the fact. We tried to use as many recycled materials as possible. These are 100-year-old doors out of North Adelaide. So ideally recycled materials. If not, then recyclable materials was kind of our ethos. Beams came from Moonta Bay Jetty, kind of gave this instant history to the place. Dani's from the UK, and there's these chunky beams everywhere, and they're just so beautiful. So that was a frivolous thing we did. The concrete we sealed with this product called Livos Universal Wood Oil. You can use it on concrete, you can use it on timber. We used it everywhere. It's linseed oil based and just with some other hardeners in it. Non-toxic, didn't smell terrible. A lot of concrete sealers are really, really toxic. So that was nice to use. The only thing is if you spill a vinegar on it, it will stain. I noticed that I dropped a jar of jalapenos, and yeah, you can see where I dropped the jar of jalapenos. So keep that in mind. We went exposed copper piping. Water and straw bales don't mix, so we were nervous about putting copper inside any straw bale walls, so we decided to keep it all exposed. I really like the aesthetic. We went with garden taps. We're gardeners, so garden taps made sense. They're super cheap. That faucet is actually just a bent piece of pipe that our plumber did. Amazing, beautiful, I love it. The pantry is where I do all my beer brewing and winemaking and make kimchi and miso and all that kind of stuff, so it does need to be quite cool, cooler than just a pure passive house can really generate. So we have put this tiny air conditioner in, the smallest air conditioner we could possibly get, and it's on a timer. It goes off twice a day for 30 minutes in summer, and it just keeps it at about 17, 18 degrees, which is great for ferments, but that's the only cooling in the whole house. For labour, we used some amazing local tradies. Hugh, with his back to us, is a master carpenter, and he hooked us up with all the other trades. So we did engage them as individuals. We just had a building works supervisor, not a builder. So we contacted each of the trades, but they all knew each other and they all could work together really well. They all knew how each other worked. And so one just slotted in after the other. It was really fantastic. Such a good process working with people who are friendly and know each other. We also did a fair bit ourselves. I laboured on the site 2 days a week, and then we had things like baling activities. So we did 6 days of baling. We got Scott from House of Bales to come in, teach us what to do, and then us and family and friends built the house for 6 days, which was just the most magical experience. Had good food made by the mums. We knocked off every day at 4 o'clock, beer o'clock, so we tried to treat people really well. It's one of the best experiences of my life. That's the finished house, looking at the northern aspect. Another angle, you can see I built a greenhouse, which is separate from the building. It's not in contact with. And I didn't need planning permission because it's less than 15 square metres and 2.4 high. So that's just a little add-on I made with bits that were left over. That's taken a week ago. So you can see how the vegetation's really come in. We put trench mesh to the north of the house, concreting mesh essentially, and so those are native climbers that are just going gangbusters, Muhlenbeckia and Hardenbergia, and then we've got grapevines coming along the beams there to give us some nice shade in summer. That's the veggie garden we put in straight after building. I wanted to show the eastern aspect of the house. You can see that outdoor area. We installed those blinds knowing that we wanted to make that kind of a blocked off area for keeping mosquitoes out, and it does a really, really good job because we factored in having a nice lip that they can come down over. It also keeps our indoor cat in, which is not something that we thought about, but yeah, acts as a kind of catio, which is great. That's a view of the garden from looking down on top of the roof, so a pretty generous garden for such a small block size, 450 square metre block. And I also grow hops on the eastern side of the building as well, so that provides extra shade, and the hops go into the beer. So I wanted to show this. This is midwinter, and how deep the sun penetrates, hitting that dark concrete slab. Really, really soaks in a lot of heat. One thing I see people do is put rugs or couches or stuff that's blocking the sun, and you're just not getting the benefit then. So if you're going to have a passive house where you're getting a lot of solar gain, then make sure it can actually touch the hard surfaces. Just very quickly, if anyone's interested, we built this, we clad this shipping container with Shosugiban burnt timber. That worked really well. And then we since put a green roof on top of it as well, which makes it so much cooler. So that's it. I'm sure I've gone over, sorry Ken, but I'll just finish with this slide, which lists various prices. We've always been really upfront with how much things cost. So depending on what you include, the prices are different and the square meterage cost is different. So absolutely everything all in, garden, container, solar, you're looking at 240,000, 2017 prices this is. So, add half probably. And if you want to follow us on social media, we post about lots of stuff to do with the house, but also other stuff that we're getting up to as well, fermenting and carving and things like that. So, thanks very much.